And so, you can say, oh yeah, that's great, you tell me all these things, but we have these genuine problems, right? On, 3 months into building a product, I don't have enough core users, so what do I do? So you have some core users. Your only focus should be to actually clone your core users via virality, right? Virality is one of the least spoken about growth tactics. Uh, the way virality is popularized especially in the Indian tech community, is just incentives and referral programs through cashbacks and rewards and whatnot. Actually, uh, and the other aspect that's completely underleveraged is India as a country is highly word of mouth driven. You want anything you want to know, learn about, you just ask your friend, you ask your relatives, you ask your neighbors, you're probably going to find an answer. So the word of mouth is actually very, very strong in this country, unlike a lot of other developed countries like the US. You probably don't even know who your neighbor is. And it's completely underleveraged. And what I mean by word of mouth is actually a lot of different things. It's not, word of mouth should not be categorized simply as, when I ask somebody what word of mouth is, a lot of the times people tell me, oh, I need to build this hook in my product that lets people share their experience with their friends. I need to build this referral program so that they can connect with their friends. I need to import the address book. Yeah, those are all aspects of virality and whatnot, but there's definitely not word of mouth, and it's definitely not limited to that. So there are a variety of creative ways to think about word of mouth. I'll give you one example about this company called UrbanSpoon. I specifically chose this example to tell you about the implication of physical actions that are not completely high-tech, high-product integrated. UrbanSpoon is a restaurant recommendation app. It started in San Francisco. It recently, a couple of years ago, got acquired by Zomato. And the app, all it did was you just ask a simple question. Every time you want to eat food, you have this question in your head, where should I go? And so all you did was open the app. And the word of mouth tactic they use there is you shake the app and it tells you where to go. It's like a slot machine. And very early on, without spending zero marketing dollars, every time someone would shake the phone, everyone would look at that individual shaking the phone, and then they would ask everyone, what is he doing? And then he would start explaining he has a school app called UrbanSpoon. It tells you where to go to eat. And typically, eating, the action of having lunch or dinner is a social event, right? So you typically have food with a few more people. And so he would go on to explain, oh yeah, this is an app, you should try to do this, it's really cool. All you do is just shake. And then you tell them whether you want to spend $1, $2, or like $2 signs, $5 signs, and it gives you a recommendation on where you should go. And within the first 6 months, just with this action of like shake the phone, get the recommendation, they went from 0 to a little over 100,000 users spending $0. And there's a variety of examples like this. Another one is Uber. And Lyft. These are two ride-sharing companies, also out of San Francisco. Uber's now global. Lyft is still limited to the US. But every time you would, you'd be in a bar and you wanted to order a cab, they would say, hey, it's cheaper to do Uber Pool. So select Uber Pool. Probably a few drinks down, you're like, I don't care, sure, Uber Pool. And then they'll do whatever they can to match you up with a friend. And then as soon as you're waiting outside the bar and then you sit in the cab and right next to you is your friend, wow, how did Uber know? Like, how did they connect us? That's surprising. And then the whole conversation starts and then there's a story to tell. And the next morning, that person will talk about, to all his colleagues and friends about how last night he shared a ride with his friend and Uber matched them up. How did Uber figure that out? And then they would do all this like talking about, how much data does Uber have? How did he know he's my friend, how did they know we were at the same bar, blah, blah, blah. And that's how Uber Pool actually got popularized. The same happened at Lyft. Another example is Shazam. How many of you guys know what Shazam is? Okay, cool. So, you'd be at the bar and it's great music playing, you're curious what that song is. They did this physical action too. You had to lift the phone on your head, and then it would listen to the song and then tell you what it is. It didn't have to do that. You could just do this too. But they trained the people to do this. And so every time you'd be this bot, and then people were just like, everyone's doing this, which is really weird and awkward, right? And so that would be a conversation starter, and people would start talking about it. And then, one thing leads to the other, and more people know about Shazam. So all I'm trying to tell you is that try to understand what the usage pattern of your product is. And there are a variety of different ways to think about word of mouth. Today, it's extremely hard to, back in the day in 2013, 2014, referrals was a big thing because it was a new thing. Now there's referral cash everywhere, right? People aren't really incentivized. Also, the benefits you can provide as a product are not always, unless it's, you are in the product cycle of actually, transactions, you can't really share money. Like, you can't give money if you're not making money. And so the incentive of that referral program just dilutes. And so try to really think about the context in which your product is built. Try to understand, what are some core user actions? How can you think out of the box? How can you, learn about it, right? Last night we were talking about another word of mouth conversation that somebody noticed. Every time you order food on Swiggy, you're really actively waiting for it, right? You're anticipating it's going to show up in 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 minutes. And then suddenly someone rings the bell. You're like, wow, the food's here. And then you open your door, and it's not your Swiggy order. And you're like, what? Who are you? You're like instantly irritated, right? And then, every single time this happens, the anticipation levels are so high. So what if, Swiggy actually, somebody suggested, what if Swiggy had a special bell that rang every time the Swiggy order were delivered, right? Something out of whack. And so, if you think about it more creatively, I'm sure there'll be a lot of ideas that you can do with respect to your product, which are not high tech. It's simple social engineering. But it goes a long way because it helps people start. Anything that's a conversation starter is inherently word of mouth because it helps people share interesting stories. So if you don't have enough core users, try to clone as many as you can through virality. Start with low-tech solutions, interesting user behaviors. How do you replicate them? How do you physically, create instances and how you physically share the app, demo the app, some stories that give them bragging rights, whatever it is, right? But the point is, the more core users you have, you can do a lot more in terms of retention and growth. But if your core user base doesn't grow, then you don't really have a product market fit.